The coolant valve hissed like an angry cat. I'd been trying to shut it up for 30 minutes, and now my jumpsuit was soaked in a synthetic blue mist that probably wasn't FDA approved for skin contact. Not that anyone on orbit station Mira 9 cared about regulation. It was the kind of place that operated on three things: duct tape, bad credit, and looking the other way. The station hung in the outer rings of the Varick system like a rusted tin can full of desperate people and overpriced noodles. I was just trying to fix a vent before it exploded, preferably without losing my remaining eyebrow. That's when I heard the voice. Not a grunt, not a spacer curse, a voice, refined, sharp, like someone had smuggled a royal opera into the engine deck. I froze mid-wrench, squinting toward Bay 17 where the sound had come from. No one went into Bay 17. It was technically condemned. Something about radiation leakage and haunted machinery. I'd been storing illegal coffee filters there for months. The voice came again, clearer now. Release me, now. I wiped coolant off my goggles, adjusted the arc torch strapped to my belt, and crept toward the source. The station lights flickered overhead, either from an overloaded circuit or the ghosts. I wasn't sure anymore. Bay 17's door squealed open like it was auditioning for a horror film, revealing rows of shipping containers and spare hyperdrive parts that hadn't seen daylight in a decade. The voice led me to the back, behind a pile of deactivated service droids and one suspiciously melted vending machine. And there she was, chained to a vertical stanchion, wrists bound with energy cuffs, regal even in tatters. Her long ears flicked at the sound of my footsteps, elegant, sharp, tapering back like blade tips. Her skin shimmered subtly under the dim lighting, not glowing exactly, but catching illumination like velvet. Her eyes locked on mine with the focus of someone used to giving orders that got followed. "I said, release me," she repeated, with enough authority to make a moon governor sweat. "Yeah, see," I said, scratching the back of my neck. "Normally I'd pretend I didn't hear anything, walk out, and maybe notify security on my lunch break next week. But you've got style. And I have a weakness for chain-wearing mystery women in haunted storage bays." She frowned like she was debating whether I was insane or just profoundly unhelpful. "I am Aelora, daughter of Queen Sarastra of Varatha. The Empire holds me here against my will." I blinked. "Cool, I'm Bo, I fix things. Sometimes. Also, I once lost a bet and had to clean the waste chute of a luxury cruiser with a toothbrush, so I'm probably not your guy for high-level political drama." "I do not require political commentary. I require liberation." "Right, that liberation." I crouched beside her, inspecting the cuffs, Imperial tech, definitely real, high-density plasma locks with biometric codes. It wasn't the kind of gear you slapped on random looters. My stomach twisted. Either she was telling the truth, or someone really wanted her to think she was important. Either way, I had a knack for poor decisions. "This'll burn," I warned, pulling out a plasma cutter the size of a rolling pin. "If you sever my hand," she said flatly, "I will ensure yours follows shortly after." "Charming," I grinned. "You're gonna fit in great here." Sparks flew as I sliced through the cuffs. The energy field shimmered, sizzled, and then gave out with a whimper. Her arms dropped and she nearly fell. I caught her just in time. She was light but tense like a coiled spring. "Can you walk?" I asked. "I've been chained for 2 days. Walking is inevitable. Grace is optional." We stumbled toward the corridor, half running, half limping. I tapped my comm, trying to reach my friend Gino, who owed me more than one getaway favor. Static, of course. The moment we crossed the threshold into the main hallway, the station alarms began howling. "I didn't touch anything," I shouted, sprinting toward the service lifts. "You freed the most wanted traitor in the galaxy," she snapped. "Yeah, but like asterisk recently, the ink's not even dry on my bad decision yet." Metal shutters slammed down over corridors, and the auto turrets clicked into standby mode. Mira 9 didn't have real security, but it had plenty of borrowed paranoia. We squeezed into the cargo lift, which groaned under our weight. The emergency panel was missing 3 buttons and one hopeful sticker that said, "We believe in you." "Do you have a plan?" Aelora asked, trying to brush her hair back with trembling fingers. Even in chaos, she moved like she'd been trained for etiquette and assassination. "Sort of," I said, hot-wiring the panel. "It involves a garbage hauler, 2 jetpacks, and lying about our identities. A lot." She arched an eyebrow. "What name shall I use?" I paused. "Starline Dumpsterfire." She stared. "What? No one questions people named Dumpsterfire." "Trust me." The lift clanked and dropped us into the lower bay. Sirens echoed. I dragged her through stacks of freighter parts and burst into Dock 9, where a garbage scow was prepped for its next run toward the debris field. I knew the pilot. He owed me 50 credits and a bottle of vinegar whiskey, close enough to a life debt. We clambered aboard. The ship smelled like burnt plastic and something vaguely fishy. Alara gagged. "This is your escape vessel," she said, wiping her nose. "It's not mine asterisk, it's asterisk borrowed, like Destiny or public toilets." We took off just as station patrols scrambled into the bay behind us. One shot pinged off our hull. Another ricocheted and took out the docking clamp, which sent us spinning through space like a drunk insect. I gripped the controls, muttering something unprintable in 3 languages. Alara watched the stars whirl past. "I never thought it would be this undignified," she said softly. I spared her a look. For a second, the mask slipped. She wasn't just some uptight noble running from a throne. There was grief there. Guilt. Maybe fear. "Well, princess," I said, leveling the ship, "dignity's overrated. But if we don't find a hyperlane in the next 2 minutes, you can reenact your royal funeral in real time." The nav system beeped. I slammed the jump lever. With a lurch and a groan and the sound of something very important snapping off in the engine room, we hurled ourselves into hyperspace. Behind us, the Empire seethed. Ahead of us, a vast ocean of stars waited, and probably a million ways to die, most of them wearing uniforms and carrying rifles. She looked at me. "I assume you don't have a plan past this." I grinned. "Of course I do. It's called improvise until one of us is crowned or disintegrated." She actually laughed, and that's how I knew I was really, truly doomed. The garbage scow wasn't so much flying as limping through hyperspace with all the grace of a stunned platypus. I'd had hangovers that traveled straighter. The hull rattled every few seconds. The nav beacon blinked in what I was almost certain was Morse code for "please kill me asterisk," and the air recycling unit gave off the faint scent of wet socks. But we were alive, and more importantly, we weren't disintegrated. I glanced at Alara, who had wedged herself onto a stack of cargo crates wrapped in thermal netting. She sat like someone who'd never slouched in her life. Back straight, chin high, long ears twitching every time the ship groaned. She watched the hyperspace tunnel streak past the viewport with the kind of expression people usually reserved for ancient curses or performance poetry. "You okay?" I asked, trying not to look like I was actively rerouting power away from the life support system just to keep the hyperdrive from melting. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she inspected a hairline crack in her boot. The boots, by the way, were still royal issue. Black synth leather, gold trim, probably worth more than my entire ship, which I technically didn't own anyway. Finally, she said, "We are hurtling through a dimension of collapsed quantum energy inside a waste vessel piloted by a man who appears to be held together by sarcasm and questionable hygiene. So yes, I am adequate." "Good to hear," I said, tapping the stabilizer with a hydro spanner until it stopped buzzing like an angry cricket. "I was worried you might be tense." She shot me a sideways glance. "You are remarkably flippant for someone who just made themselves an enemy of the Empire. I prefer to think of it as freelancing in the field of heroic idiocy." The ship coughed. I didn't know ships asterisk could asterisk cough, but this one was setting new records. I brought us out of hyperspace near a minor trade lane, the kind of place off-grid freighters passed through when they were low on permits and full of questionable cargo. Just far enough from major patrol zones to be safe, for now. I drifted into low orbit around a dead moon with a busted relay station and flipped the comms to passive. Alara stood, stretching her arms. Her movements were fluid, precise, trained. I noticed a faint line of scars along her wrist, almost hidden beneath the fabric of her sleeve. "You don't strike me as someone who gets caught easily," I said, pulling a ration bar from the emergency stash. I offered one to her. She examined it like it might explode. Honestly, it might have. "I don't," she replied, accepting it with minimal enthusiasm. "I trusted someone I shouldn't have." "Oh," I said, "classic boyfriend." "Cousin." I blinked, ouch. "Royal family drama." "More like royal betrayal." He uncovered my communication with the resistance, turned me in personally, said it was for the good of the bloodline. "Family," I said, unwrapping my own bar. "Can't live with them, can't sell them for spare parts," I checked. She tilted her head, unsure whether to laugh. "You are very strange." "I get that a lot." I tossed her a thermopack of recycled juice. She sniffed it, looked mildly offended, then drank. I was impressed. For a few minutes, silence settled. The stars blinked around us like ancient secrets, and the only sound was the buzz of the cooling fans. I let her sit in it, let her breathe. I didn't know what kind of hell she'd been through before I found her, but I figured she'd earned the right to process it. Then, because silence makes me itchy, I said, "So, what's the next move?" "Hide. Fight, win the galactic lottery, and buy a planet." Her expression darkened, but there was steel in it now. "I need to get to the Resistance. There's a contact, Vel Dre, on the outer rim, Sector K-14. He'll know what to do." "Vel Dre," I said slowly. "The guy who tried to bribe the Grand Archive into printing fake star maps." She blinked. "You know him." "I know of Asterisk him. He once sold a rogue moon to a mining cartel. It turned out to be a hologram with a very aggressive advertising jingle." She sighed. "He's also one of the few people who still believes I'm not a traitor." "Well," I said, finishing my bar, "that puts you ahead of most people I know, including myself." I tapped the nav console. The star charts fluttered onto the screen like a kaleidoscope having a panic attack. Sector K-14 was 2 jumps out, through a debris field and a minor plasma storm. Nothing too dangerous unless we got caught, shot at, fried, or eaten by ion leeches, which had happened, once. "I'll need to call in a favor," I said. "From who?" "Gino, he's a smuggler. Has a ship that actually works, sort of. If you kick it right." Alara raised one sculpted eyebrow. "And you trust this Gino?" "Oh gods, no," I said. "But I saved his life during a bar fight in the Zarn Belt, technically. I hit the guy who might have been threatening him, or maybe he owed him money. Either way, he ran." She exhaled. "I'm beginning to think my fate rests in the hands of deeply unreliable people." "Don't worry," I said, flipping on the comm beacon. "I'm only moderately unreliable." I pinged Gino's ship. After a moment, the holo lit up with a static-filled image of what appeared to be a parrot with cybernetic implants and an eye patch. Gino wasn't actually a parrot. He was a small, wiry alien whose species just happened to resemble parakeets that had seen too much. He squawked, "Bo, what did you do this time?" "Gino, buddy. I need a ride, discreet and fast. Oh, and also I'm now wanted by the Empire." A moment of silence. "So, the usual." I grinned. "Also, I've got a passenger, royal blood, long ears, very stabby. Might be the key to breaking Imperial control." Gino sighed. "Why do I answer your calls?" "Because I once got you out of a shipping container full of rabid tribbles." "That was your fault." "Details." He grumbled. "Fine, meet me in 3 hours at Station Rix. Dock 4, don't be late. And for the love of all things slimy, don't bring anyone who's gonna start a revolution." I looked at Alara. No promises. When the call ended, I leaned back. "Well, good news is we've got a ride. Bad news is he might sell us for spare parts if he's in the wrong mood." Alara didn't look worried. "Then we'll have to convince him otherwise." "You're frighteningly calm." I was raised to survive palace assassins, political executions, and dinner with ambassadors from Krelthon. This is practically a vacation." I chuckled. "Well then, Your Highness, welcome to economy-class rebellion." She almost smiled. Almost, and then the proximity alarm screamed. A fast-approaching blip heading straight toward us. Too fast to be civilian, too erratic to be friendly. I pulled us into evasive spin, yelling over the rising hum of thrusters. "Looks like someone RSVP'd to your escape party." She reached for a harness and strapped in without flinching. "Just so we're clear," I shouted, "if we die, I'm blaming you." She nodded serenely, as is tradition. There's a particular kind of silence that happens right before a ship gets blown up. Not the serene, peaceful kind. No, this one crackles. It waits. It holds its breath like the universe is flipping a coin and isn't sure whether to land on obliteration asterisk or asterisk mildly inconvenient explosion. That was the silence hanging over our cockpit as the incoming vessel, sleek, sharp, and unmistakably imperial, locked onto us. "Incoming missile," the ship's AI announced cheerfully, as if announcing the lunch menu. "Estimated time to impact, 42 seconds. May I recommend screaming?" "Jettison something," I barked, hands flying across the controls. "Anything." "What do we have to jettison?" Alara asked, already securing the seat harness across her chest. "Let's see." I yanked open the cargo bay monitor. "We've got 2 crates of used asteroid miners, 1 defective janitor bot, and a crate labeled definitely not explosive, trust us." "Use the last one." "Thought you'd say that." I slammed the release lever. The cargo bay opened, and our little space turd of a ship coughed out the crate like a hairball. The missile, confused by the sudden, tumbling debris, veered slightly, enough to let me yank the controls and dive the ship down toward the gravity well of a nearby moon. The moon's pull grabbed us like a debt collector with a grudge. "Good news," I said, fighting the controls. "We're not dead." "Yet," Aelora said dryly. The enemy ship looped around, engines flaring like a bloodhound catching a fresh trail. "Can we outrun them?" she asked. I snorted. "In this ship. I've seen snails with better thrust ratios." "A beat, organic or mechanical?" she asked, genuinely curious. "Don't make me choose." We punched into the atmosphere, the hull plating sizzling under friction. The moon below us wasn't exactly scenic, rocky, cratered, and clearly never invited to any respectable planetary parties. But it had one thing I needed: cover. Jagged ridges jutted like broken bones, and a series of caves riddled the surface like the moon had once been chewed on by a giant worm. I angled the ship down, skimming dangerously low over the surface. "We're going into the rocks," I said. "Define into. Let's say it involves the hull doing things it's not emotionally prepared for." The chase that followed was less of a dogfight and more of a really aggressive boulder-dodging competition. The Imperial ship had the firepower and speed, but I had desperation, poor judgment, and an uncanny ability to pilot trash through narrower-than-legal crevices. As we shot into a ravine, a blast from the Imperial's twin cannons sliced past our rear thrusters, sending sparks flying. "I'd like to remind you," the ship's AI said as we jolted sideways, "that your warranty does not cover aerial acrobatics, planetary impact, or missile-based dismemberment." "Great, now the ship's sassing me too." "I find its sarcasm comforting," Aelora said, tightening her grip on the overhead bar. I guided us through the last of the rocky tunnels, dodging fallen stone pillars and what might have been a sleeping sand slug the size of a small yacht. Then with a hard jolt I spotted it, a narrow cave mouth half buried in dust, big enough for a desperate smuggler's junk bucket if angled just right. I angled wrong. The ship scraped into the opening with the sound of metal filing a lawsuit. Panels flew off, sparks flew. The ship spun once, bounced, then lodged itself into the tunnel with a final, grudging thud. The lights flickered, then stabilized. We were buried deep, hidden, and for now unblown. I turned to Aelora. "So, how'd you like the scenic route?" "I've had better rides in diplomatic shuttles piloted by drunken diplomats," she muttered. "That bad, huh?" She glanced around. "We're alive, that counts for something. I'm counting it as a major win." We unbuckled and stumbled into the corridor. The air was thick with heat and the scent of fried wires. I handed her a flashlight. She flicked it on, casting a pale beam down the passage. "This place looks ancient," she murmured, running her fingers along the wall. She was right. The tunnel wasn't just natural, it had been shaped. Old grooves marked the stone, some in patterns I didn't recognize. This wasn't just a cave. It was something older, maybe even abandoned. My spine tingled with that familiar sensation. Curiosity mixed with asterisk, please let this not awaken something buried. "Well," I said, shouldering a tool pack, "while we're stuck, we might as well explore. Maybe we'll find a souvenir or a cursed relic, or both." Aelora didn't laugh, but the corner of her mouth twitched. The tunnel sloped downward, cool air brushing against us. My boots crunched on old dust. We passed empty alcoves, odd geometric structures, and, at one point, a metal pillar humming faintly with dormant energy. The place felt like it had once been part of something vast. A research station, a vault, a bad idea that just kept growing. "Who do you think built this?" I asked. "Not human, not Verithan either," she said softly. "Look at the symmetry. This is something older, pre-Empire, maybe even pre-Union." "Wonderful, we're standing in a history lesson. Better than being vaporized." "Debatable." We reached a chamber, round, high-ceilinged, with consoles still blinking faintly in the dust. The floor was glassy, smooth, some kind of crystal. In the center, a plinth rose, cracked but intact. Above it hovered a faint projection, a map, a sphere. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Aelora approached it slowly, her ears angling forward. "Is it alive?" I asked. "It's a memory construct," she whispered. "I've seen these in archives. It holds data in ambient field matrices. You don't read it, you feel it. Creepy, efficient." She reached out. The moment her fingers grazed the projection, the chamber pulsed. Light cascaded across the walls, symbols, stars, a voice speaking in an ancient tongue that resonated in my chest more than my ears. Images flickered, war, silence, a shattered planet. Then a symbol I did recognize, the crest of the Empire, superimposed over the old. "They found asterisk this place," I said, voice low. "They built over it." No, Aelora said, stepping back. They buried it on purpose. Which means we're sitting in a vault of something they wanted lost. And now we've woken it. A moment of stillness passed between us. Then the console crackled again, only this time with a different tone. A transmission, old, degraded. A voice said in a language barely stitched together by static. Final gate breach, archive sealed, all units, evacuate or perish. Then silence, Aelora exhaled. We need to leave. Can't, ship's wedged in like a fork in a garbage disposal. Then unwedge it. I sighed. Unwedging takes time, tools, and a small miracle. A new sound echoed behind us, metal scraping. Slow, deliberate, I flicked my wrist blaster out. Please tell me that's just the ship settling. Another scrape, louder. Nope, I muttered. That's plot progression. Aelora stepped forward, blades extended from the cuffs on her arms. Stay behind me. What? I'm the one with the blaster. You also crash ships. Rude. We turned to face the tunnel behind us just as a shadow shifted along the wall. Tall, many-limbed, its form flickering like it wasn't entirely solid. Oh look, I said. A ghost with extra arms, exactly what I was hoping to run into today. The thing stepped closer, then hissed. We ran, because sometimes heroism is overrated and running is the smarter choice. Especially when the ghosts are angry, ancient, and very possibly holding a grudge against noisy intruders. Running through an alien ruin while being chased by an angry, semi-corporeal ancient guardian was not how I imagined my Thursday. Or what I hoped was Thursday. Space has a funny way of making time feel more like a suggestion than a rule. I careened around a corner, nearly tripping over a toppled console that looked like it hadn't been touched in 5,000 years, and had developed abandonment issues because of it. Left, Aelora shouted behind me. I am going left. That's a pillar. I corrected mid-stride and barely missed, slamming into a block of black stone, covered in strange etchings that definitely weren't OSHA-compliant. Behind us, the ghost thing, or whatever it was, let out another hiss, a sound that vibrated my spine like someone had installed subwoofers in my ribcage. It wasn't fast, but it didn't need to be. It moved with the patient menace of something that knew time favored it. What is that thing? I shouted as we leapt over a crumbling ledge into another corridor. It's a construct, Aelora said, panting, bound to this place. Probably programmed to defend it from intruders. Oh great, a haunted Roomba. She gave me a look. Even mid-panic, she had a remarkable ability to deliver royal disapproval through her eyebrows alone. We ducked into a side chamber and slammed the door panel. The heavy slab of metal sealed with a satisfying hiss. The chamber flickered to life, lights dimming up from the floor in gentle pulses, casting everything in pale cyan. It was a small room, maybe a former control node or a break room for terrifying energy beings. I slumped against the wall, catching my breath. Aelora didn't sit. She stood like a soldier, blade cuffs ready, ears twitching. I think we lost it, I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. For now, she said, it won't stop. Because of the artifact. She nodded. We triggered the site's failsafe. It was supposed to keep people out. We walked right in. Honestly, I feel like we should get partial credit for curiosity. She shot me another look. Okay, no credit, fine. We took a moment to examine the chamber. More of the strange crystalline panels lined the walls, pulsing softly. I tapped one. It blinked, then expanded into a floating display of what looked like star charts. Are those current? I asked. No, Aelora said, stepping closer. They're old, centuries, maybe millennia. These were star routes before the Union, before even the Arcanet. Back when people flew ships made of wood and dreams. Don't be ridiculous, she said. They were made of bone and quantum fiber. Oh, much more sensible. She traced one of the constellations, her expression softened. This one. My grandmother told me stories about it. The path of the weeping suns, a corridor through collapsed stars and gravity fields. Legend says it was closed during the first silence. Sounds poetic. It was a military disaster. Less poetic. The projection flickered and new images replaced it. A sequence of runes, then a symbol, a spiral flanked by 3 vertical lines. Aelora tensed. That's the mark of Iranth. Should I know what that is? It was a resistance cell. From long before my time. They believed the empire was built over something dangerous, something buried. They thought the Empress herself had sealed away an ancient power. I stared at the symbol. So, let me get this straight. We're currently hiding in an ancient ruin tied to a forgotten rebellion, haunted by a ghost programmed to kill intruders. And now you think we might have stumbled onto a buried superweapon. She hesitated, possibly. Fantastic. And here I was worried we'd have a boring day. The lights flickered again. That same distant scrape echoed from the hall beyond. I sighed. I missed the garbage ship, I muttered. We needed to get back to it. Assuming it hadn't spontaneously combusted from neglect or been eaten by the moon. Aelora keyed the panel to the door and peeked out. It's not in the corridor, she said. Maybe it went for a nap. She didn't respond, just moved. We crept back through the tunnels, this time taking side paths. The air had changed, still but heavy, like something was watching. The walls felt closer, more alive. Aelora moved in front, silent as moonlight, while I kept a hand on my blaster and muttered encouragements to the universe like, please no more ghosts, and I'll quit caffeine for a week if we live. Eventually, we reached the chamber where the ship had wedged itself. It hadn't been eaten. Good, but it had shifted. A long gouge marked the floor where something had tried to dig under it. I looked at Aelora. So, we're not the only ones who want to get into the ship. She climbed up the side and disappeared into the hatch. I followed, trying not to dwell on how the engine smelled like it had lost its will to live. She was already at the console. Engines are stable, she said. Somehow, we can probably dig out if we reverse thrust and redirect auxiliary power. Probably. She gave me a tight smile. I've never flown a garbage scow. Well, you've got the right attitude for it. Lower your expectations and embrace disappointment. We prepped the ship. I flipped a few switches, rerouted power, and slapped the console for good luck. The engines hummed, low, angry but alive. Aelora keyed in the thrust sequence. On my mark, she said. The scraping returned, closer now. Please mark quickly. She slammed the thrusters. The ship groaned, vibrated, then began to rise, slowly at first, then faster. The dust beneath us exploded outward. I heard a shriek below. Whether from the construct or my nerves, I couldn't tell. We cleared the tunnel mouth with a final metallic screech and burst back into daylight, or at least the thin blue glow that passed for it on this moon. Up, up, up! I shouted as if yelling would help. We rose, engines screaming. The moon's gravity fought us, then let go. We breached the atmosphere and shot back into orbit. I sagged in my seat. Remind me never to explore anything older than my breakfast ever again. Aelora didn't respond immediately. She was staring at the console, at the memory crystal she'd swiped from the vault. That wasn't just a ruin, she said softly. That was a warning. About what? She looked at me. About what the Empire found and what they're still hiding. I didn't have a witty comeback for that one. For once, the stars ahead didn't feel like escape. They felt like a fuse, and someone had just lit it. The smell of old spice coils and recycled air welcomed us the moment we docked at Station Rix, which is to say, it smelled like someone had tried to air freshen a landfill with lemon-scented regret. Station Rix wasn't on any official charts. It orbited a dwarf planet charmingly named Zeta 12b*, which was famous for two things: an unusually large population of genetically confused jellybats, and a market economy that operated on favors, lies, and edible currency. We slid into Dock 4 under low power, hull still groaning from our earlier moon murdering. Aelora didn't speak much during approach, still focused on decrypting data from the artifact we had swiped from the ancient ruin. Her long ears flicked as she concentrated, strands of silver hair falling across her brow. I wanted to ask if she needed help, but the last time I'd offered assistance with alien tech, I'd set a vending machine on fire. So I wisely chose silence. The docking clamps engaged with a thunk that sounded suspiciously like resignation. I shut the engines down, grabbed my jacket, now 38% patched burns, and turned to Aelora. Ready to meet Gino. She didn't look up. Is he the smuggler who sounds like a bird and swindled the trade minister of Xers out of her antique comet? You did your homework. I never forget faces or scams. I winced. Just try not to stab him. He's only treacherous when sober. She rose fluidly, tucking the crystal into her belt pouch and strapping her blade cuffs back onto her wrists. I'll behave, she said, unless he insults my ears again. To be fair, they are majestic. Flattery won't save you either. We descended the ramp into the station. Rix was eclectic. The corridors were narrow. The lighting flickered like it owed the electricity money. and the walls were decorated with everything from plasma-scorched graffiti to propaganda posters written in languages I didn't recognize. One of them just said, "No," with a picture of a weasel, which, frankly, felt universally profound. Gino met us at a dive bar called * the Orbiting Kidney ***, which was named after the owner's actual kidney, which reportedly once achieved orbit during a failed zero-G brawl. The bar itself was carved into the station's hull, full of mismatched furniture, buzzing hollow screens, and a bartender who might have been part fungus. A local ska band of sentient gas clouds was performing in the corner, their music translating as light pulses and unexpected sneezes. Gino was at his usual booth, sipping something green and suspicious. He saw me and screeched in a voice that sounded like a kazoo being tortured. "Bo, you space-rotting scum, you owe me 12 credits. I grinned and opened my arms. "Still counting that, you know I prefer to pay in friendship." He squawked again, then turned his eyes, one mechanical, one glowing gold, toward Alara. He blinked. "Oh," he said slowly, "you brought a royal." "Former royal," she corrected, slipping into the seat beside me like she owned the galaxy and was just slumming it today. Gino tilted his head. "You know there's a bounty on you large enough to buy 2 moons and a custom weather system." 3 moons, actually," she said dryly. "Prices rose after I escaped." He whistled. "Impressive. You always did have a thing for impossible women, Bo." "I call it ambition," I said, "or poor self-preservation." He leaned forward. "So, why are you really here?" Alara didn't waste time. She pulled out the data crystal and dropped it on the table. It pulsed softly. "This came from a pre-Empire vault. The Empire buried it. Hard. Whatever's inside is important enough to still be guarded by something. I need to get it decrypted, and I need safe passage to Veldre." Gino eyed the crystal like it might bite him. "Veldre's not easy to reach. He's gone dark, last seen in the Zarn Fringe, possibly with pirates." "We'll deal with that when we get there," I said. "Can you get us a ship?" He leaned back, talons tapping against his cup. "I have a ship, the whimsy of regret." Alara raised an eyebrow. "That inspires confidence." "It shouldn't," I muttered. Gino continued. "She's fast, cloaked, and terrible at turning left, but she'll fly. I'll even throw in a nav key, if you fix my hypercoil engine regulator." I groaned. "You still haven't replaced that thing." "I've been busy, hiding from debt collectors, building a hot tub in the cargo bay, priorities." "Fine," I said. "We'll fix it, but you're flying." "Deal." 3 hours later, I was elbow-deep in wires, while a service bot hovered nearby making passive-aggressive beeping noises at me. Alara sat cross-legged on the cargo ramp, linking the data crystal to a portable decryptor unit. It spun silently, light codes dancing across her face like alien fireflies. Her concentration was unnerving, regal. I wondered what it felt like to be born with power only to run from it, probably a bit like being handed a grenade and asked to juggle. "Progress?" I asked, not looking up. "It's not a weapon," she said. "It's worse. It's knowledge. Well, I do hate reading." She flicked her eyes to me. "These ruins, the ones we found, there are more, dozens, maybe hundreds. The Empire didn't just bury technology, they buried history. Civilizations that predated them. Some of them were capable of manipulating gravity, rewriting matter, controlling." "Controlling." She hesitated. "Life." I paused. "Like immortality. More like memory. They could store identity. Reconstruct consciousness, recreate people." I dropped the wrench. "Oh, good, ghost archives." She nodded. "They feared what would happen if that knowledge spread, so they wiped the records and built over the sites." "And now you've poked one of the graves." "I did poke it. I liberated it. That's what pokers always say." Before she could respond, Gino's voice echoed from the cockpit. "Bad news. Someone ratted you out." I bolted up. "Who?" "No idea, but we've got 2 bounty cruisers inbound, and one looks like it's flown by a guy I lost a card game to last year. He still wants my feathers." I ran for the control deck. Alara followed, blade cuffs snapping into position. Gino spun in his chair. "They're docking in 10 minutes. We're not taking off in time unless someone distracts them." I blinked. "You mean me, don't you?" "I would but I've got the flight codes and she's royalty. You're expendable and noisy." "Compliment taken." I turned to Alara. "If I don't make it back, tell the story of my noble sacrifice." She tilted her head. "Which part? The screaming, or the part where you tripped over your own ego?" I gave her a mock salute, dealer's choice. And then I was running back into the bowels of Station Rix, trying to figure out how to distract two bounty hunters, an angry ex-guard player, and possibly a fungal bartender with a grudge. This was not how I planned my life to go, but then again, I'd never been much of a planner. Running through Station Rix with a decoy beacon duct taped to my chest wasn't exactly my proudest moment, especially since it beeped. Loudly. Every 10 seconds. In 6 languages. I was the world's worst siren song, except instead of leading sailors to their doom, I was trying to get bounty hunters to chase me away from my ship, my not-quite-girlfriend, and a data crystal that might implode the Empire's favorite lies. I skidded around a corner, nearly colliding with a merchant bot stacked with jars labeled Fermented Moon Weasels, Crunchy Edition. The bot screamed in protest. I screamed back. There wasn't time to apologize. The bounty hunters were behind me, 2 of them, maybe 3, judging by the distinct sounds of heavy boots, clicking ammo belts, and someone breathing like they'd swallowed a broken harmonica. One of them shouted something about the royal reward and his own moon spa. I did asterisk, not asterisk, want to know what that meant. Station Rix wasn't built for clean escapes. It was a maze stitched together by panic, budget cuts, and possibly sentient mold. I ducked into a side corridor, past flickering neon signs and a door labeled, "Do not enter unless you're prepared to regret everything," which honestly sounded about right. I activated the beacon one more time, tossed it behind a stack of crates, and slipped into a maintenance shaft just as the bounty hunters stormed past, guns drawn and dreams of tax-free luxuries dancing in their greedy little brains. From the shaft's dark metal cocoon, I pulled up my comm. "Gino," I whispered, "tell me you're flying." His voice crackled back, squawking through static and stress. "We're powered, not flying. Aylora's doing something strange with the nav matrix." That could mean anything. "It looks surgical." I groaned, 10 minutes max, keep her safe. Like she's covered in lava and holding my retirement fund. I ended the call and began crawling. The shaft was tight, lined with ancient wiring and something that smelled like melted jellyfish. By the time I emerged near Dock 7, I was covered in soot, regret, and probably tetanus. I took a shortcut through a storage bay full of hibernating cleaning bots. One of them blinked to life as I passed and chirped, "You're filthy." "Thanks, Mom." Back at Dock 4, the asterisk whimsy of regret hummed like a caffeinated beast. Her panels were lit, shields up, and a small patch of hull had been spray-painted with the words, "No ticket, no shoes, no betrayals." That was probably Gino's work. I bolted up the ramp and sealed it behind me. Inside, the ship smelled like engine coolant and exotic tea, Aylora's doing. She sat in the co-pilot's seat, her fingers dancing over a holographic interface that looked too advanced for Gino's junkyard aesthetic. The data crystal hovered in a suspension field beside her, glowing softly. She didn't look up. "I assume you brought friends." "They're late, probably lost, or dumb, or both." Gino flapped into the seat beside her. "You ready to make us extremely wanted criminals?" "We already are," I said. Aylora smiled, thin, tired, but real. "Then let's earn it." She keyed in coordinates, and the ship lurched as we punched into hyperspace. The stars stretched, then vanished. Silence filled the cockpit like exhaled tension. "Where are we headed?" I asked, slumping into the nearest seat. "Zarn Fringe," she said. "Veldre's last known location. He's in hiding, but I think I can get us close." I eyed the data crystal, still glowing like a tiny star. "What's it doing now?" "Decompressing layers. It's not just a map or an archive, it's a neural vault." Gino blinked. "A what?" "A storage system for memory, consciousness, personalities, possibly from an extinct species, possibly not." "That sounds very illegal," he muttered. "It's not illegal," she said calmly. "It's forgotten." The lights flickered. The ship's AI chirped a warning. "Unidentified interference in subcore systems. Origin, passenger data stream." Gino spun to her. "Please tell me the memory rock isn't hacking my ship." "It's not hacking," she said. "It's remembering." That didn't help. I leaned forward. "What's the endgame here, Aylora? Say we find Veldre. Say we decode this thing. What then?" She didn't answer right away. Her ears twitched. Her gaze turned to the stars outside the viewport. "This isn't just about the Empire," she said softly. "It's about what came before, what they destroyed. If we can prove it, show the Resistance what was buried, maybe we can fracture the lie they built their power on." "People don't care about old ghosts," Gino said. "They care about rations, protection, fuel prices." "They'll care," she said, Once the ghosts start speaking, that sent a chill down my spine. 12 hours later, we dropped out of hyperspace into the Zarn fringe. The area was wild space, unregulated, unmapped, and deeply allergic to authority. Planets drifted in odd orbits, black holes whispered from the edge of perception, and ships that came here either vanished or came back with far too many eyes. We skimmed past a dying red star and landed on a moon called *Gravith Minor ***, which sounded like a toothpaste brand, but was actually a former mining colony turned resistance outpost. It was quiet, too quiet. Gino stayed behind to babysit the ship while Aelora and I made our way through the ash-covered settlement. Most of the buildings were old prefab units with patches of corrugated steel covered in graffiti and solar moss. A single sentry bot blinked at us, scanned Aelora's face, and then turned away. "That's a good sign," I muttered. We found Vel Dre in an underground chamber, half lab, half bunker, half insane conspiracy wall, which was a lot of halves. He was tall, gaunt, and draped in a tattered cloak made of solar fiber. His beard was braided with copper wires. He looked at Aelora like she was a living legend, which I suppose she kind of was. "You found it," he whispered, voice hoarse. "The Aranth archive." "Not all of it," she said, pulling out the crystal, "but enough." He stepped forward reverently, then paused when he noticed me. "And who's this?" "I'm the guy who keeps her from getting shot," I said cheerfully. "Ah," he said, "a noble idiot." "Professionally." Veldre took the crystal, eyes gleaming. "With this, we might finally wake them." "Wake who?" I asked. He looked at me with a smile that could only be described as deeply ominous asterisk. "The minds that remember what the stars used to be, the ones who built the first gates, the ones the Empress feared." I turned to Aelora. "I swear if this ends with ancient alien gods wanting to wear my skin, I'm charging extra." She smirked. "You always do." And somewhere deep beneath our feet, the vault began to hum. The hum from beneath Ravith Minor didn't stop. It deepened, grew, layered itself into a sound that wasn't just heard, but felt asterisk. A slow, resonant vibration like a forgotten song stirring from ancient dust. Veldre paced the length of his lab with the energy of a caffeinated prophet, gesturing to flickering holograms and muttering in languages I was pretty sure he was making up on the spot. Aelora stood still, eyes closed, fingers lightly brushing the crystal's casing as if listening to a heartbeat only she could hear. Her long ears glowed faintly in the low light, catching every pulse of the archive like tuning forks made of silver. She looked older now, not in her face but in her posture, less rigid, less regal. She didn't carry the weight of a crown anymore. She carried something heavier, choice. I hovered near the entrance, arms crossed, trying to keep my nerves under control while secretly hoping no one asked me to touch anything that might explode or whisper my deepest fears back at me in stereo. "So," I said to no one in particular, "is the plan still to not die? Because I'd love to put that in writing." Veldre stopped pacing just long enough to give me a look. "Your irreverence is your shield." "No, my irreverence is because I've been chased, shot at, insulted by robots, and accused of smelling like old reactor grease. I'm entitled." He turned back to Aelora. "It's time." She opened her eyes. They were calm, steady, older still. "I know." Together they activated the projection field. The crystal lifted, spun, and bloomed into light. Patterns spiraled outward, stars, equations, faces, symbols, and what looked suspiciously like a species-wide group chat of a long-dead civilization. And in the center, an image, not of a person but a voice, a presence, a construct so old it had forgotten its own name but remembered everything else. "Designation, Echo Primaris," it intoned. "Query, why have you summoned me?" Vel bowed his head. Aelora stood straight. "Because we need to remember." There was a pause, longer than a pause should be, and then the hologram shifted. Memory compression lifted, integrity at 84%, initiating relay. What followed was indescribable, not because it was too complex, but because it was too human asterisk. The archive didn't just show history. It made you asterisk feel asterisk it. We saw the rise of a pre-empire alliance, civilizations that shaped stars like clay, that built sentient ships and cities grown from light. We saw their fall not to war but to fear. They had buried themselves, their knowledge, their very selves asterisk, in archives scattered across the galaxy. The Empire hadn't discovered them. It had asterisk inherited asterisk their silence. When the projection ended, I realized I was crying, just a little, probably from the dust. Veldre stepped back like he'd just seen the face of a god and wasn't sure if it was smiling. "That's it," he whispered. "That's what we needed." "What now?" I asked. "Do we publish it, leak it to every comm station from here to Orion Delta?" Aylara turned to me, her voice low but sure. "We don't release it all, not yet. We give it to the Resistance. Slowly, carefully. If we throw this at the galaxy, it'll break something. So, no dramatic galaxy-wide awakening." "Not yet," she said, "but enough to shake the Empire. To fracture the story they've told for centuries. To remind people that the truth exists, and it's bigger than they imagined." Vel nodded. "We'll start with the outer colonies. Give the forgotten places a voice first. Let the core tremble last." I looked between them. "You're both terrifying." Aylara smiled faintly. "And you're still standing." We spent the next 3 days transmitting encrypted fragments to Resistance nodes across 5 systems. Gino grumbled about the fuel cost and the fact that his hot tub plans had been postponed ***, but he stayed loyal, mostly. He did try to sell one of the fragments to a black market archivist who turned out to be a sentient beetle with anger issues. It ended in a slap and an unpaid drink tab. Balance was restored. Aylara changed subtly. She laughed more, even if her laughs were quiet and slightly confused, as if joy was something she was still learning to use. She stopped correcting my jokes. Well, mostly. We sat on the observation deck one night, if you could call it night, when the only light source was a fractured nebula glowing like a bruised jewel. I handed her a steaming mug of station-issue tea. "Do you miss it?" I asked. "The palace. The quiet, the certainty, the knowing who you were supposed to be." She took a sip and stared into the nebula. "I don't miss being a piece on a board. I miss believing the board made sense." I nodded, same. There was a long pause, filled only by the ship's soft hum and the occasional klaxon from Gino's kitchen when something tried to escape the oven. She looked at me. "Would you have done it all again? Help a fugitive royal with a bounty big enough to buy a star cruiser, flee across half the galaxy, awaken ancient space ghosts, and make myself the most wanted man in 3 sectors?" She raised an eyebrow. I grinned, in a heartbeat. She didn't answer, just reached over gently and laced her fingers with mine. Her hand was warm, steady, real. A week later, the galaxy began to change. The Resistance published the first fragment, a record of the Empire erasing an entire civilization from the archives. Systems rioted. Questions spread faster than the Empire could silence them. The Empress issued a speech so perfectly composed it might as well have been sung by a choir of emotionally repressed lawyers. But it was too late. The cracks had formed, more fragments followed, carefully chosen. Enough to rattle, never to collapse. The Resistance grew bolder. The Empire grew paranoid. And somewhere far from the flames, aboard a battered ship with a sarcastic AI and a hot tub that never worked, we watched it unfold. Gino dropped us off at a neutral colony orbiting a red dwarf. He offered me a hug and Aylara a coupon for free talon sharpening. Then he flew off to smuggle something illegal and definitely flammable. Aylara